Hi friends, I'm pleased to welcome you once again to this channel. Thank you for joining me in this video as we take a look at the telescope. We are going to look at a description of the telescope, what it is used for, and then the various forms of telescope that are in current use. Now, simply put, a telescope is a scientific instrument that is used to view and to study distant objects. Now, whether the object to be studied is on the Earth's surface or whether it is in outer space, the telescope finds application in using a technique of magnification to make a distant object to appear closer for a greater detail so that it can be studied. Now, most telescopes are actually used to study objects in the outer space, both within solar system or outside the solar system. The earliest form of telescope that were discovered were optical telescope, and the optical telescope use is made of either a lens or a curved mirror. Now, when a lens is used to build a telescope, such a telescope is called a refracting telescope. When a curved mirror is used instead in the building of the telescope, such a telescope is called a reflecting telescope. Now, refracting telescope were the first form of telescope that were invented. However, the refracting telescope suffers from some limitations, one of which is the chromatic aberration. A refracting telescope suffers from chromatic aberration, which results from the splitting of light into its component colors. So this is what we call the dispersion. Dispersion, which leads to chromatic aberration, poses a significant limitation to the use of a refracting telescope, even though such chromatic aberration can be compensated for. Now, besides the optical telescope, other forms of telescope have also been invented, keeping in mind that optical telescope makes use of light. They use light collected from distant objects to form a magnified image of that object. Light is a form of electromagnetic wave, and the realization that light is a form of electromagnetic wave led to the invention of other telescope which uses electromagnetic signals other than light. Such telescopes include the radio telescope, the infrared telescope, the X-ray telescope, the ultraviolet telescope, and even the gamma ray telescope. Now, telescope can be classified based on the electromagnetic signal that it used to view objects. Just like I've mentioned, under this classification, we can have the optical telescope, we can have the radio telescope, we can have the infrared telescope, we can have the gamma ray telescope, the X-ray telescope, and so on and so forth. Now, telescope can also be classified based on their location, where the telescope is located. For example, telescope can be located on the ground, and this type of telescope is called a ground-based telescope. Telescope can also be located on the top of mountains. Some telescope, in order to escape the effect of light pollution, can be taken onto the top of mountains where they are mounted in order to escape the effect of light pollution on Earth's surface. Now, other forms of telescope have to be taken into space, and this type of telescope are called the space-based telescope. Notable examples of space-based telescope are the Hubble Space Telescope, the James Webb Space Telescope, and so on and so forth. Now, the advantage of having a telescope in space is to get rid of the limitation of not just light pollution on Earth, but also to overcome the effect of atmospheric seeing, which is the result of the distortion to distant light coming from the outer space by the Earth's atmosphere. The turbulence within the Earth's atmosphere affects lights which are coming from the outer space. So in order to overcome that limitation, telescopes can be taken into space. Thank you for joining me. Do have a wonderful time.